Hello, and welcome to the UTHSA San Antonio Community Support Webinar. Today's topic is Building Resilience and Coping with Change. My name is Michelle Mata, and I will be your host for today's webinar. Today's presenter is Priya Nair Flores. Priya is the Organizational Development Consultant in the Office of Human Resources at UTHSA San Antonio. At the end of this webinar, individuals will be able to recognize how changes due to the pandemic have affected us all, define resiliency and the importance of self-care, and identify resources to support you during this time. Now, let's begin with Priya.
Thank you, Michelle, and everybody for joining us today. In this section, we'll be discussing coping with change. Before we jump into coping with change, let's reflect on the timeline of events that we've all experienced. In late December 2019, we began hearing about a novel virus starting to move across the world. By January 21st, we had the first case in the U.S. A short time later, in mid-March, we had our first case in San Antonio. And by March 17th, schools, nursing homes, and some businesses began to announce closures, work-from-home arrangements, and limited public access. That's a lot of change in a very short period of time. It can naturally cause anxiety, uncertainty, and be overwhelming. If you're feeling any of these, you should know you're not alone, and it is normal. To understand why, we need to understand more about change. At a high level, there are two types of change. Self-initiated, where you choose the change. Imposed is the other one. Someone else chooses the change. In this case, something else, like the pandemic. You're either affected by the change and/or responsible for carrying something out because of the change. As you can imagine, imposed change is the hardest to accept. Much of what we've experienced with the pandemic has happened to us. A lack of control can make it very challenging. It can cause a sense of loss or even grief due to the changes. You may have seen the cycle before. It's called the Kubler-Ross grief cycle. You may be experiencing some of the feelings that are associated with this cycle: denial, anger, depression, bargaining, acceptance. Not only you are going through this, but your loved ones and your colleagues may be in this. What's helpful about this graphic is that it shows you, for those experiencing feelings of denial or anger, it may be helpful to provide information or communicate with them. For those experiencing depression, we encourage them to seek emotional support. You may be that emotional support for your loved ones or colleagues, or you may need emotional support. Asking for it is always important if you do need it. For those in the bargaining or acceptance stages, guidance and direction is helpful. It's important to note that although this looks like a linear path, it's not a linear path. You can move through different parts at different times, and with as much information as we're getting, you can go through the whole cycle several times. We share this with you to raise awareness that these are reactions that are part of a normal process, and that going through this difficult time can have associations of loss and grief with it. People in your life are also adjusting to this temporary new normal we are facing. Let's take a moment and reflect on the changes that we've all experienced that have happened in a short period of time. Some of the changes you may be experiencing are pretty profound. Work changes. Some of you are being asked to work from home when you never have before. This comes with new challenges. Where can you set up a space that's private? Do you have technology to support the work? Can you stay productive and connected? For those continuing to report to the workplace in support of our mission, there may be concerns about possible exposure and the ability to limit exposure for others. As a note, Dr. Charlton will cover this topic of safety, health, and care at length in a separate webinar. So look on the COVID-19 website for that. As far as personal changes, there are concerns about possible financial losses. While we may have less concerns giving our leadership's commitment to the workforce. Others, including spouses and family members, may be in a different situation. Hearing about these situations and trying to support them can be very difficult. Access to food. We've all seen the changes over the past 2 weeks in our grocery stores, and it can cause alarm. The good news is we have some highly adaptive grocery stores and innovative restaurants working hard to meet our needs. There's constant news about COVID-19 all around us, in our news feeds, social media sites, and conversations with our friends, families, and colleagues. We all want to be informed, but negative news can truly affect us. Family illness. It may come to pass that family members get ill, and we sincerely hope that is not the case. Either way, it's one more concern on your mind. Caring for children is a major responsibility, and some of you are making homeschooling decisions. Working from home while also keeping your children healthy and educated is a big stressor. The kids themselves are also adjusting. They're unable to follow their regular routine and don't see their friends. You may be experiencing the need to support elderly or vulnerable family members. It can be extremely challenging to support family when individuals are not supposed to be in contact with each other. They might be in your home, in their own homes with travel or mobility restrictions, or in a nursing home with limited visitation or access. Practicing social distancing, or now as we're starting to call it, physical distancing, can be challenging when you're used to seeing family, friends, and coworkers on a regular basis. We're used to shaking hands, we're used to hugging, and this is a different new normal. Additionally, traveling can be a great escape or a way to recharge, yet now you're being asked to stay in one place. It can feel extremely limiting. When we look at this list, it's clear a lot is being asked of us. In a short period of time, all the things we were used to doing one way has a new temporary normal. It can make it even more stressful when we don't have a definite end date. Currently, it's like we're living in an extended period of constant stress. What's going to change? What new information is going to be shared? Let's explore what happens to our body, mind, and behavior under stress. Coping with any change is stressful and causes many changes to your body, mood, and behavior. These changes can be negative and affect the way your body feels and reacts to stressful situations. This chart provides a sample of common effects of stress such as headaches, fatigue, sadness, overeating, to name a few. Most of us are feeling one or more of these from time to time given this situation. Mitigating these effects is important to maintaining balance and keeping your immunity up. Long-term stress has been shown to reduce your body's immunity. Especially now, you want to take action to increase your immunity. So, how do people respond to change? It's very individual. It can be a mixture of emotion and rationalization. We need to not assume that others will respond the same way we do, or that you will, under different circumstances, respond the same way you're responding now. While you're dealing with stress, so are all of your colleagues and family members too. But what should we do, knowing that most of these changes may not resolve immediately? To answer that question, we'll talk about how to build resilience and some strategies for coping, because long-term stress requires long-term strategy. Before we explore the strategies for building resilience, let's define what resilience is. Resilience is the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or significant sources of stress. The good news is there are many strategies to help build your resilience, and there are resources we have through UT Health San Antonio that can help too. The first strategy is to build your connections. It's vital during this time when we are being asked to physically distance ourselves from others. The feeling of isolation is one that should be addressed early so that positive outlook can be maintained. The situation we're currently facing will not always be like this, and family and friends can help you see that. Be sure to prioritize relationships and connections. Even during this physically distant time, it's possible to create a group or join a group using technology. Although we are practicing physical distancing, we have the blessing of technology to help us stay in touch with colleagues, friends, and family. You can use programs such as Microsoft Teams for work-related activities. Besides the ability to share files and post messages, there's also the added feature of video conferencing. You can even have virtual lunch with a colleague or a group of colleagues. Personally, you can use social media to stay connected as well. Beyond posting things online, you can use Facebook Livestream or your phone's FaceTime feature to stay in touch and have virtual gatherings. Consider setting up a regular family call for those you are not able to visit. For loved ones celebrating birthdays during this time, consider options such as Google Meet to have several people gather virtually. Let me share a personal story. The newest family member was born in Seattle, and we were all going there for a family reunion until the pandemic. We were able to meet her virtually through video conferencing, and it made us feel a little closer in a difficult time. The next strategy is to foster wellness. During a time where your mind can feel turbulent, take a moment to unplug from the constant flow of negative news. Some ways to do that are to practice self-care and take care of your body. Since stress is as much physical as it is mental, promoting positive lifestyle factors like proper nutrition, ample sleep, hydration, and regular exercise can strengthen your body to adapt to stress and reduce the toll of emotions like anxiety or depression. Also, this is a time to practice mindfulness, being in the moment rather than anxious about the future. Ways to do that include practicing mindful journaling, yoga, and meditation, which can help restore hope and prime you to deal with situations that require resilience. Avoid negative outlets. It can be tempting to fall into negative habits like overeating, excessive use of alcohol, and other substances in order to cope. Watch for these and do your best to refocus on your well-being. The good news is we have a lot of resources that will help you get in shape through exercise apps and mindfulness apps that will help you learn some meditation. We will be posting these resources on the COVID-19 website. Be on the lookout for them. The good news about strategy number 3 is that it highly aligns with our mission to make lives better. Focusing on the work we do every day may support the strategy of finding a purpose. Whether you are staying at home or on the front lines, we are all contributing to slowing down the pandemic. There is deep purpose in faithfully practicing physical distancing. During downtime, hone in on your skills and abilities and find a way to help others. Perhaps there are elderly neighbors that may need support or supplies. When we look around, there is usually someone we can help. Being proactive in this pandemic means that you are taking physical distancing seriously. This means you may have some extra time on your hands to conquer a home project, work on professional development goals, or sit down with a good book. Develop some realistic goals, write them down, and take action regularly. Each small step will move you forward toward your larger goal, which will help you find purpose. Look for opportunities for self-discovery and identify ways you've grown through this struggle. This strategy goes hand in hand with the mindfulness practice. Maybe you've gotten closer to family because you've had more time with them. Maybe you've gained greater respect for certain routines, foods, or activities. Realizing how you've grown can increase your sense of self-worth and heighten your appreciation for life. Some resources to support finding a purpose. You can join groups on Facebook. You can connect with family and friends and offer support. You can set goals for yourself, and you can journal and have self-reflection. At this time, it can be easy to fall into a pattern of negative thoughts and hopelessness. If you practice this strategy of embracing healthy thoughts, your chances of increasing your resilience goes up. It's important to keep things in perspective. How you think can play a significant part in how you feel and how resilient you are when faced with obstacles. Try to identify irrational thinking, such as a tendency to catastrophize. If you identify with this, seek assistance to help you overcome such thinking. Additionally, it can be a time when you are so focused on the news it becomes unhealthy for you mentally. Keep this in check. Plan to take a news break from time to time. Give yourself time to take in positive information through positive podcasts, movies, and news. Another strategy for embracing healthy thoughts is to accept change. Change is a part of life. For the time being, certain things are not going to be the same, and you may not be able to do the same things in the same way you have done them in the past. Accept the changes and focus on what you can control. Your attitude is under your control, and your ability to stay positive during challenges can help you and your family and your community. Maintain a hopeful outlook. Sometimes it's hard to be positive when life isn't going your way or as expected. An optimistic outlook empowers you to expect that good things will happen to you. Try visualizing what you want rather than worrying about what you fear. Along the way, note any subtle ways in which you start to feel better as you deal with difficult situations. And finally, learn from the past. By looking back at who or what was helpful in previous challenging times, you may discover how you can respond effectively in new difficult situations. Remind yourself of where you've been able to find strength and ask yourself what you've learned from those experiences. The final strategy is to seek help when you need it. It's important for building resilience. Seeking help is a smart and brave act, and we have the resources to support you. Our primary resource is the UT Employee Assistance Program. The EAP has a 24-hour crisis line. Their number is 1-800-346-3549. Confidential telecounseling and in-person appointments with mental health providers are available. As mentioned previously, all the resources that we've talked about today will be posted on the COVID-19 website. In closing, we want to say thank you and share a quote. When I was a boy and I would see scary things in the news, my mother would say to me, "Look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping." To this day, especially in times of disaster, I remember my mother's words, and I'm always comforted by realizing there are still so many helpers, so many caring people in this world. We end with this quote because we know you are the helpers. This is why you chose to work at UT Health San Antonio. We know it can be tiring and possibly difficult to maintain a positive outlook. As President Henrich said, you are our focus. We want to support you as you cope with the many changes and continue to make lives better. From the bottom of our hearts, thank you for the work you do every day.
Thank you, Priya, for presenting today's webinar on building resilience and coping with change. Also, thank you to each of you who have viewed this webinar. We hope you have found this information helpful. This concludes today's webinar. Thank you, and stay safe.